It's an honor always to be here with you, always listening to you and talking with you and chopping it up. Nothing makes me happier. Like when I got that text from you, I was like, absolutely.
Joakim Noah, welcome to my show. You and I have been friends for 16 years, maybe.
16 years. Sounds about right.
I think my distance of my age is a lot less. Like to know a young man at 24 and to know him at 40 is like a different universe. And I was thinking the other day, when you played, you actually don't like to do interviews, but now that I think you're doing these other projects that have value to other people, I was like, you know what? Would be comfortable asking you to do an interview because we could also talk about these other positive things that you're doing because typically I would just leave you alone.
Appreciate you, G. But you know, it's nice to be the person to ask the questions. You know, when
Tell
you're
me about it.
when you're playing, it's always like, so why did the defense? Why was it so? What happened tonight? And it's just like that's the last thing you want to do when you're playing. So just to be in the position of being the person to ask the questions of things that you're interested in,
Yeah.
that goes a long way.
I just wanna go back a little bit because I think there's some really fascinating things for me about you as an athlete and as a person that I wanna revisit before we kinda get into where you are right now. So you were born in New York, but you were really in France until you're about 13, right?
That's right.
And then brought back to New York. Was it really to play basketball? Was it a change for the family? Like, why did your mom bring you back to New York when you were 13?
You know, I come from a lot of different places. My father was a very famous tennis player, and we were living in France at the time. And I think my mom just wanted a more normal lifestyle. And I think moving to New York at 13 really
Mm.
changed my life. You know, it's like you're in this like higher status because of who your father is, and it's not real to who you are. You know, and I think my mom wanted the kids to have a more normal lifestyle. And, you know, I wanted to play basketball and it wasn't going to be people just sugarcoating stuff because of who my father was. And you know, honestly, it was the best thing my mom ever did for us.
Yeah.
You know, you leave Paris and you move to New York and you play basketball, and, you know, people don't realize how much of a culture shock that was. You know, you come in with a little accent from France and you want to play basketball at the highest level. I'm with street kids every day in New York, and you know, it was definitely a culture shock to say the least. But you know, it changed my life, and I couldn't be more grateful.
I think a lot of young people I didn't grow up with this because Laird or I didn't grow up with, like, this idea of, like, you had to do something or somebody in your life was, quote, "somebody," because we all know that that's, like, a made up thing now that you've been through it and seen it all. I think a lot of people, though, if they have a successful parent, that is something really to overcome, and I think, obviously, you didn't play tennis. For people listening, Yannick Noah is your father. He won the French Open, just a highly colorful and celebrated athlete, but you seem to have seamlessly carved your own path. Do you think that that was part of the motivation or just like, "Hey, I'm not him, it's different, you pick a different sport." I think the fact that you're very tall, I mean, your dad, I think, is closer to my height, right? Like 6'2" or 3, and, you're almost 7 feet. So, I think, obviously, that gives you just a different lane, but was that was that fuel or pressure, or did you not think about it and just kinda roll?
No, I think it was the main motivation, to be honest. You know, I just wanted to be my own person. I wanted to be my own man. And for so long, it was just getting out of my father's shadow. It wasn't even his fault. You know, it was just, I wanted to be my own person. And as I got older, it's also, and having my own kids, now I look at it completely different. It's like finding peace of, you know, my father is also a reflection of who I am. And I'm proud of what my dad stands for. And I can say that now. When I was a teenager, it was all about me and wanting to be my own person and not being the son of somebody.
Mm.
And that's fair. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. That was my motivation, and that brought me into a space where I could be the athlete that I needed to be. Like every time I stepped onto the court, I wasn't gonna just be some silver spoon son of a tennis player. It had to be something more than that, and I had to prove my work ethic every single time I stepped onto the court. Now it's appreciating, you know, the sacrifice that he had to make, and without I mean, look, my dad is the last Frenchman to win a Grand Slam. He's the only African player to ever win a Grand Slam, and it's something that I can look out with a lot of pride and say, you know what, that's who I am. And my grandfather before that, I'm a third generation athlete, completely different sports, but the education that they gave me is as athletes, even though we played completely different sport, it shaped me.
Mhm.
And I'm at peace with saying that at 40 years old. When I was 22, when we met, it was the fire was still, I'm Joakim, man. I'm not just the son of Yannick, and I think as you get older, you kind of find peace and you have a little more grace with yourself. And yeah, I'm proud of where I stand in this world.
It's funny, for me, you're one of the most when I say the word fluid, you're just a person that you move easily in spaces, people, if they meet you, I always say that you're a person who walks in a room and you make just seeing you makes someone feel good there, you really have that. But I also know that when you were younger, this idea of like, well, where do I fit? It's like it's so interesting when we're young how everything is so categorized. Like, oh, you're French, or oh, you're a New Yorker, or oh, you're black, or oh, you're white. And I would imagine you bringing all of those worlds together. How are you able to do that? Because I think people experience that in their own ways. We all think, oh, I'm different. I don't fit in. And we realize that kind of not we all feel that way, but I just wonder how you kind of brought that all together because you are very comfortable. Like when I see you, you're a person who has been comfortable with yourself for a really long time.
Thanks, G.
It's true.
Well, honestly, I feel like that's my biggest gift. I really do. I do not want to be put in a box. Do not try to put me in a box. I always felt that way, and I'm proud of my upbringing. I grew up a privileged kid that got to travel to Africa for Christmas, and got to the next year it was like going with my mom, and then we're in Sweden for Christmas. And I grew up in Paris, but then I played basketball in New York City. So there's just like I do come from all these different cultures, and I'm proud of being able to say I have stories in all of these cultures where I'm meeting people all the time who have different upbringings than I do. And I'm trying to be as curious as possible. And that's why this next step of my life, where this travel show opportunity that just came up, makes so much sense to me because I do feel comfortable in different parts of the world. And I think that that's also just the way that I was raised.
Because I think that's something it's almost like one of our jobs as an adult is like to really land at like, "Oh, yeah, this is who I am. So now I can really figure out the way that I can live in the world, contribute to the world." And you even did that in your game. I'm not gonna live too long in your basketball life, but, you went to Florida. I won't hold that against you. You won back-to-back, championships in '06 and '07. A lot of success early, and then you go to the Chicago Bulls Defensive Player of the Year. I think what was that, 2014, right? Something and so a lot of success, but again, different. Like, a lot of people play a sport and they go, "Well, I need to score the most points." And you were a little more like Rodman style, which is like, "Oh, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna fire up the team, I'm gonna be kind of the emotional motor engine for the team, and I'm gonna do part of my job." Was that innate, or did you just think, "Oh, this is just the most effective way I can do this?" Like, how do you know that going into the league to be able to contribute that way?
First of all, I appreciate you. It always means a lot coming from you. But honestly, it's crazy getting older because now that I look back on it, it's the losses and the pain.
Mhm.
I remember it. It resonates more than I don't really remember that much after the championship or as a kid. It's just like more, the losses though. Like they're still in my dreams. I don't know if that answers your question, but for me personally, it was I think you get to the NBA and it's a dream since you're a little kid and you have a role to play. And if you think that because you were a star player in college, it's going to mean that you're a star player in the NBA. That's not the case. So it's always being able to adapt and how can I affect winning? And
Mm,
affect winning as on a team means a lot of different things. Whether it's like for me, it was my biggest thing was the intangibles like steals, rebounds, being vocal on the court, coming from all different places. I'm in a locker room where I have a kid from Serbia and I have a kid from the south side of Chicago. I have a kid from South Sudan, and we're all teammates. How can you relate to everybody where we can all come together, have a beer after the game, and play for something that's just more than just an organization, right? Like we're a real brotherhood.
yeah.
So I still see those guys to this day, and they're my brothers, and I'm proud of that. And I like to feel like I was because I come from all these different places. Those are not things that you put on in a stat sheet. You don't see those things in a stat sheet, but when you're in the locker room, it means something to be able to bring the guys together, and they feel good about doing their job.
'Cause you were very fiery and passionate and vocal and emotional on the court. Did you need that to play? Did you ever get like, "Man, I feel quiet today. I don't have that juice." Like, does that just flow naturally for you?
I think it flowed naturally. I think that's who I was. I was a very emotional player, and I think people in Chicago, especially when I was younger, they loved me for it because but the reality is, it's 11 p.m. We just played a big game. We just won. Like, there's no way I'm going to sleep at 11:30. I couldn't sleep. Or after a loss, just my mind just racing, racing, racing. I can't sleep. So people love me for being an emotional player, but it definitely took a toll on me where, I didn't have a 20-year career. I had a 13-year career, and I had a lot of injuries. And you know, I I met you and your husband in a time in my life that I needed you guys so much without even knowing it. Just the biggest blessing of my life was meeting you and your husband right after the Eastern Conference Finals against the Miami Heat. We lose to the Heat, and I remember my mom had given me a book on your husband on Laird, and it's one of the few books that I read in my life. And I remember getting to your house, and you guys were making the protein shakes, and you guys had, and I was just like, "Holy shit! This is really they're really living their lives like in the book. It's not. This isn't a gimmick." And I just want you guys to know how much I'm just so honored to have you guys as mentors. You guys have been there for me, throughout my journey, and through your training and your lifestyles. Like this is things that I use in my life today. So thank you guys always.
Of course, you give me your family, but I'm listen, I'm here because to to learn from you because you have had a lot of experience compressed in a very short period of time. So, let's just take the 24-year-old when you came to us, you were sort of gaining weight and putting on weight. You were very slender in college. You played with a lot of big guys. One of my favorite stories, is the first time you played against Shaq.
You want me to share that one?
Yeah, I do because and you can also share why you were tired the next day.
I remember we're playing the Heat, and it's my first time getting into the game, and the coach, Shaq didn't make free throws, so the coach tells me, it's time for you gotta go out there, and we're gonna hack a Shaq. Just go in there and foul him. He's 400 pounds. I'm 200 pounds at the time. So he's double. And he's like, look, I'm not expecting you to do much. Just get in there, foul him. So I get into the game, and somebody's at the free throw line, and get in the game. I'm like, guys, don't worry. I got Shaq. And everybody just starts dying laughing, right? Except for one person. Just Shaq is just looking at me. And he's just like, Rook, watch your nose. Like, I'm going to fuck you up. So I'm like, oh shit. Like, I was not expecting that reaction. I thought he would think it was funny. I was trying to make light of the situation. And, I ended up getting a steal on the first position. He tried to take my face off, but thank God I got my face out the way, and we ended up winning that game. I remember. Yeah, that was my one of my welcome to the moment in the NBA was playing against Shaquille O'Neal and getting a steal against him.
But then, you said it wasn't you're not tired because you're, like, bumping around with him, he just lays on you the whole game.
Yeah, that just Shaquille O'Neal, people ask me like, "How is it playing against Shaq?" And just try pushing against a wall as hard as you can for, 30 minutes. And just my
Right.
back was all messed up. I've thank God it was the end of his career, but I can't imagine having to guard that, like how dominant and
Yeah.
powerful he was.
When you watch footage of him from Orlando, it seems, like, mathematically impossible, you know what I mean? You're just like, "How's that guy moving around that way?" But what was the training? What? Because I 'cause I'm sure when you were at Florida, you were training and there was some sophistication in the training, but what were the things that you added that really supported you, as a professional athlete?
Yeah, it's funny because when I got to the league, I thought it was all about, like, putting on weight, so just lifting
Mm,
heavy weights, and obviously, it's so much more sophisticated now, but it's so much more than pumping heavy weights, it's how you feel in your body. I see a lot of young guys just talk about, "Put on weight, put on weight, put on weight," and it doesn't work out for them. Your body has to get used to playing with 10 extra pounds or 15 extra pounds. But sometimes I see these college kids putting on 15, 20 pounds and they're not moving how they should be moving. You got to be fast. You got to be quick. You got to guard that 3-point line. This is a completely different game. And, like, for example, like you look at Wembenyama and you see him, he's 7'6", and everybody's talking about putting on weight on his frame. And that's gonna happen with just getting older, and it's more about the consistency and training the right way and eating right and all those things more than just quick results and putting on quick weight. I think that's that's old school. That's old school.
I know you can relate to this. So I always think, "Oh, man," like, we didn't have pool training when I was competing, right? When I was playing professionally, and we always have all this information when we're older that we're like, "Oh, if I knew that when I was playing, I would have done it."
Mm,
And of course, I think that's how life is, where that's why you get the information, you never get it right then, you have to acquire it and gain your own wisdom. But
mm,
I'm wondering if sometimes when you think back to it, because 'cause you're still heavily involved, in basketball, and the NBA and an NBA in Africa, um, what would you tell young Joe Kim, what would have been the things that you might have whispered in your ear to do differently knowing what you know today?
mm. I think, more than I think the sports education was there. I think
Mhm.
I think it was more for me, it was more mental. I was just I would have told myself, like, "Just don't be so hard on yourself."
Mm, yeah.
It's like I took things so personal, so personal. Yeah, just I think that I would just enjoy I really did enjoy the ride, but I was very hard on myself. Just take it easy, just it's all about the next day, whether as you get older, you realize to give yourself more grace, just, like, whether you win or you lose, you win the big game, it's like you still have to be up at 8 o'clock in the morning and do the same training, and like being great is about repetition and doing it all over again, whether you win or you lose. And I don't know, I think I got too caught up in the winning and losing part. Just focus on just getting better every day. Stack the days, whether you win, you have a big game, you come back, you're in the gym the next day. Enjoy that. Enjoy the being in the gym the next day. And um, big loss, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, it's okay. You go back in the gym the next day and you train and enjoy the training.
Yeah.
I got too caught up in the winning and losing.
Yeah, that's understandable. So, even when you were pretty young, I would say, you're in Chicago, you create a foundation, well, to support young people, but also to bring gang members together. I know when you're an athlete in a city, the city becomes important to you and you wanna give back, but this was a I think that's a pretty bold move. Like, how do you know, like, is this gonna work? So, how did you guys put that together, and what was your hope? And then how was your stress on that first gathering, that first game?
I appreciate the question. You know, Chicago's been like a second home to me and given me so much, honestly. Like my first time being able to represent the Chicago Bulls. I mean, it's like beyond a dream come true, right? And Chicago's an unbelievable place, but it's also a place that's plagued with violence. And when you represent the Chicago Bulls, you become an ambassador for the city. And I was able to see how my father navigated that. Just going back to Africa and being an ambassador for France and being a champion in France. So that was always something that I understood, that when you play somewhere, you represent the city, and sometimes that means sacrificing some time and some energy for helping people.
Mhm.
So it's always been something that I was very proud of, and Chicago always really resonated with me and gave me so much. So it was very important to give back, and we started a basketball league where we were bringing kids. It was a violence prevention basketball league, we would say, where we would bring in people from different parts of town playing basketball against each other. And in the beginning, it was, I wouldn't say hostile, but it was very tense. And as it went on, just the kids understood what we were trying to do and felt a lot more comfortable. And it's something that I'm really proud of, to have a basketball league where people thought like we were crazy starting it. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, the kids feel comfortable playing here because they have to see each other every Saturday. It's something I'm very proud of. It's something that I really believe. I believe in second chance. I feel like I grew up a privileged kid where my dad was Yannick Noah, but I could have easily been a kid from the South Side, and how different my situation would have been if I grew up on the South Side of Chicago, in these areas that are plagued with violence and issues like we can't believe. So I think it's just important that when you're in a position of power, like being an athlete, I think we have a responsibility to give back to these communities and bring hope. And I think that that's something that I continue to do.
I mean, it's such an interesting thing for me to always be reminded that sometimes we think we're all so separate and we're so different. And an example of like that, like separate gangs, like that's a real thing. And then you realize, like, oh no, actually, if we can put all that aside, we can, share space and joyfully compete.
Mhm.
And I think that's so true. You're always a great reminder that we're not really that different. We just don't know each other, you know?
Well, we're not different at all. You
No.
know, um, it's deep. Look, you're making all this money playing basketball, and you know what, I think that it's also important for me. It's not just about giving back, it's how much I gain from it
Yeah.
myself. It's like, yeah, it puts things in perspective for me, where I'm not living in a bubble and thinking that I have the answers because I made money. And I
Yeah.
think that we get caught up in thinking that we have the answers when, all right, well, you know what? I went to go visit a juvenile center last week where I was asking the kids, like, what do you guys feel like you guys need at a second chance at life? Because a lot of people have a lot of answers for these kids, but I don't see a lot of people taking the time asking those kids about their realities and what we can do to give them a real second chance at life. So, I'm never going to turn my back on this. This is something that is very dear to my heart. I've been doing that for a very long time, and the truth is that, yeah, it is painful. It is painful to hear about the realities but at the end of the day, they're kids, and it's very important for us to not turn our backs on some of these issues.
Speaking of that, so basketball, you got helped you create that, and then now you're doing a show, which I have to tell you, uh, it's so perfectly you. So Nomad, which, you know, people don't know this or know you. Like for me, you've always been like you're a hippie in a certain kind of way. And we laugh because okay, you grew up in Paris and New York, Blair grew up in Kauai, I grew up in the Caribbean, and And you forever, I think, have laughed at sort of, our rigidness. Like, there is a rigidness about Laird and I, that constant discipline, and yet, like, we're the islanders, but you are the nomad in a way. I mean, you got engaged at, Burning Man. I mean, like, you have some fun.
That's right.
And it tell me if I'm saying this right. So NBA Take Two has a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
right? And this
That's
is where your show first of all, I'm not surprised, but I was surprised. I was like, "Oh, Joe Kim is going they're gonna pin him down, and he's gonna travel around and ask and interview people." So, first of all, where did the idea come from? And second of all, please run me through how you get prepared to do them.
Well, honestly, I'm really excited about this Nomad show. This is something that just came up about a year ago. I was, working with the NBA, and right when I retired, my reputation wasn't great. I had, it didn't end on a super positive note. I was a little bit pissed off, and I was like, look, at the end of the day, the NBA gave me so much. Like, how am I gonna show this unbelievable platform that I have? Like, where's my value? How can I do better? So I went straight to the NBA offices in New York, and I went to every department, and I told them, like, look, listen, I'm here to work. I invested in this NBA Africa League, but NBA cares department, I'm here to work. It's not even about being paid. I just want to show you guys where my value is. And I think that that's something that a lot of guys don't do. It's like once they're done, because they have a certain status or in life or have made a little bit of money, they forget, like, okay, I'm ready to start from scratch all over again. Like, I'm fine with that. So once they understood that, about that part about me, I was given more opportunity, because I had to show my professionalism. I had to get their trust again. And when they started this NBA Take Two company, it's a company with the NBA. They want to show a different side of the NBA, a more authentic side to the NBA that they don't show on other platforms. But this was an opportunity for them to. This is an opportunity for me to show myself
Mm,
as a nomad. And when this travel show opportunity came, we started in Chicago because that's where my success was. Well, that's where my fan base was. And honestly, like, my brother Derek Rose, put it on a. We talked about unbelievable, fatherhood, and the pain of losing, winning, and it was just a great conversation that we had with a brother. And I try to tell the young guys, like, all the time, like, when you're done playing, all you have in this league is your relationships that you have and your memories. And so I was able to keep some good relationships, and start the show, and use basketball as the root, and be able to explore culture and explore people, and just showcase who I am. And I really feel like this is my strength. This is where I can be myself and be curious. And a lot of times we go places, we stay in a resort, we stay in a hotel. This is not what it is. I didn't The thing that I was worried about the most, G, was being on camera going to take away the authentic thing. And that was always my fear with the cameras. I was always like, are people gonna start being all phony and shit because the camera's around? Because
mhm,
if that's the case, then I'm not traveling to be in conversations with fake people. Like,
right.
I'm not. And I was a guy who used to talk a lot of shit when I played basketball and stuff. So it's like I see when I'm on podcasts and stuff, everybody's just trying to get me to say stupid shit for likes and views. And I'm 40 years old. I'm not 22 anymore. Like, I'm 40. I have kids. And I was kind of known to be that person. So it's like also being true to who I am, and just going places, and it's not just about the clickbait thing. It's about, like, being true to who I am, and being authentic, and meeting people where I can be, where I can be the person leading the questions. And I think that when I saw how interested, how excited people were about sharing their cultures with me, that's when I was like, okay, I think I have something here. And leaving to Serbia on Wednesday, and we traveled to Morocco. We did a before the hurricane, we were in Jamaica with the Marley Sons, and it was just like I'm having a great time with it, and I think it starts there. Just like, are you having fun?
Yeah.
And having fun.
Do you get nervous?
Less, because now I feel like there's a structure, and I know what's needed of me, and I know,
Mm, yeah,
and it's like building with a team all over again,
yeah.
and understanding what your role is. So these are all things that I learned as a player and what I needed to do to be successful at my job. And it's the same thing. It's just working with a different team, understanding who the players are, understanding who's doing the editing, putting a name to everybody and building together. And I understand my role, and I try to do that to the best of my ability. And now it feels more and more natural.
It's interesting. I can't help but think that, a lot of times with sport, especially when you're successful, so, and winning NCAA back to back would be considered successful, never mind going to the pros and never mind the accolades that you achieved. But the identity part, I never felt watching you really that you struggled with the identity part. And now it's interesting because now you're putting your teeth into other things and expressing yourself in other ways beyond your family. And I'm just wondering, why do you think that transition was easier for you than maybe sometimes some other athletes?
I think a huge part of it is just being true to yourself. And the truth is, no, it was not easy, because so
Mhm,
much of my identity was basketball and being on that court. And yeah, there is a transformation when you retire, where I'm not a competitor anymore. And so much of my life has been about being a competitor, and like and finding peace with that. Like, I'm not playing in front of 25,000 people anymore. Like, that will never happen again. And that's a tough pill to swallow. Like, sometimes I see a lot of those guys on podcasts, and the older guys who are done playing, and they still have that pain. I'm just like, bro, you gotta let it go. Like, this is not our time anymore. And we're here to, share our experience with the younger generation. If it's to shit on the younger generation because the product doesn't look how it did 10, 15 years ago, then I already lost them. So it's being really true where we stand in this fight. Like, okay, you want to stay around basketball? Like, how can I make myself valuable? Like, so I think that if I stayed in that frequency as a competitor, then it wouldn't work. Like, my frequency now is about being curious and being open-minded, and that was easier for me, because I'm always like that anyway, a little bit. But it's also being at peace with the fact that, yeah, I'm not a competitor anymore. Like, you see it, like, okay, when I play backgammon with Laird, or I'm playing cornhole with Laird, like, it can still come out. It's still there, but there's an awareness to me of, okay, I'm feeling this type of way. Just chill out, like,
mhm.
just like, it's my father. It's deep. Like, I'll play backgammon with my pops, and he's like, "No, I don't play past 7 o'clock. I'm not playing with you." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "No, I can't sleep. If I lose, I can't sleep." And he's 65. So I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be able to, like, I see my dad 3 times a year, and I don't want to my son at 65, when I'm 65 years old, saying, I don't want to say, I can't play you in backgammon because I can't sleep if I lose.
Yeah.
First of all, I take that as a huge advantage when I hear shit like that.
Oh my gosh. Joe Kim, I remember when you were younger and you would talk about how playing, and I think it was even already when you were in college, that you love to watch grown adult, especially I think men, losing their minds because they did not like you as an opposing team and player. Like, you got off on that. Like, a lot of people would wilt and be like, "Oh my god, everyone's so hostile." You used to say how much you love that.
I love it. I mean, I still do. But I think that's the beauty of competition, because there is a real dark side to competing, and
Yeah.
that's why, that's why the stands are full. That's why it's fun to watch grown men lose their shit. Like, emotion, it's these games are so emotional, like, I don't know, we got a World Cup coming up. It's about being able to control your emotions on the big stage. Like, this is what it's all about, a tough call. Like, look, I wasn't the best. I wasn't great at controlling my emotions, but I did the best I could, you know. But people like watching grown men like get a technical foul and telling the ref to go fuck off. There's something about it's so real, because it's like, yo, you lose complete control of your emotions because you want to win a game.
Yeah.
And there's something about it, like, we can laugh about it, but at the end of the day, it's like we're playing a game. We're getting paid a lot of money, and we're so like emotionally attached to the whole thing. All of us, the fans who are in the stadium, the players who are the owner, like, everybody who's in the arena has a different mindset towards, but we're playing a game. We're
A
playing a
ball's
game.
going in a hoop.
Ball's going in the hoop.
In a
It's,
hoop,
ins-
I know.
it's heavy.
I so
Mhm.
heavy. I used to really appreciate this conversation that you and Laird would have. You'd come out of a season and you and Laird would talk, because 'cause you'd usually come out west and train, get ready for your off season, maybe take a trip or here or there. And something that you always did innately, this is your nomad part, which would be, yeah, maybe you go and have fun, but you would also spend time in a natural environment. And you and Laird used to really talk about the importance of the more we're on one side. So in your case, it was arenas, crowds, people. And for a lot of people, it could be like literally sitting at your desk all day long and being on a computer.
Mm,
Then you've got to counteract it, counterbalance it with nature.
mhm.
And you always, for me, I always saw what a really natural relationship you had being in the natural world as much as you did like out in the streets.
Well, I think that you just said something really special. I think that, look, it's a balance game at the end of it, whether
Mm,
it's sports or not. It's you have to have balance in your life. And if, for example, like, I live in Miami now, and it was Art Basel. My week has been just not a lot of sleep. I have a baby at home, and so it's, look, sauna, now it's counterbalance, right? Sauna, ice. Like, I'm trying my best here. I'm not trying to pretend like I have all the answers, but I will say, like, having friends like you guys that can also like look deep into my eyeballs and say, "Okay, we know what you need." Like, that that's always very heartwarming. So I appreciate that, seriously.
you've been traveling a lot, and, I've just wondered, I know it's impossible to do that, right? Like, you're in a weird time zones and not your bed and different food. Did you find anything that was helpful in at least being in those environments and trying, either do you just say, "Hey, fuck it, I'm not even gonna bother," and you let it go and say, "I'll get back to my routine when I get home," or
Mhm.
did you find little ways to sort of keep turning those support wellness knobs?
Gabby, I'm not great right now. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I feel like shit. I feel like shit. Like, it's tough. The one thing that I think that I did well is that I I bought homes in away from the city. So I have a home in Hawaii, where I'm in the jungle, and I bought a house in Miami where I'm not on South Beach. I'm 30 minutes south of the city, where, I have fruit trees. Like, I grow fruit trees. I'm in environments where I can put my feet in the grass, and I'm not around thousands of humans when I'm home, So I grew up in New York City. I wouldn't have that balance. So when I'm home, at least I'm in an environment where, look, XPT is part of our life. What you and Laird taught me in the training, like, I'm pool training. I breath do my breath holds. I'm in the sauna. I'm in the ice. I drink my layered hydration, in the sauna. I have my little things that help me get my energy back.
Yeah.
And so I have the tools because I was around great people. And I would also say like the environment that I built for myself and my family is very nature connected.
Let's talk about your family because we've joked that, you're 4 kids in and, you're like, yeah, competing in the NBA was easier than, kind of all this. And, listen, Joakim, another thing I've always admired about you before you birthed a family, you have been a very supportive figure. I know your dad's the patriarch of the family, but you've been glue. With your sisters, and your brother and your father and your mother. And so
Mhm.
you've always been that way. Like, hey, let's bring everyone together. And everyone just means everyone. It doesn't mean, okay, only the people I'm related to. It means, hey, let's bring everyone together. I'm just curious because that takes work. Even though it's the return on that is unlimited, it takes a certain amount of work and
Mhm.
effort. Why did you do that so early? What was it? What did you know? And why were you doing that?
I mean, I think, for me personally, I mean, look, talk about balance in your life, just having people that can be truthful to you, I think is just you can't put a price on that. And, when you put energy into people, you'll get it back. And especially I'm a big believer in that too.
Mm,
It's like, for example, like our relationship, for me, it goes back to when I was struggling on the Knicks and I was able to come and give you a hug and we could laugh about it and move on. And then I
mhm,
going to Memphis the following year and I was just drained. And I had people that were there to support me. And to me, that's what it's all about. I try to be there for my people because I know there's going to be a time where I'm going to need them. And so I mean, I don't it's not selfish, but in a way it's also a way of like,
yeah,
protecting yourself and making sure that you have people that are there. You support people so that one day when you need support, they're there for you too.
yeah, yeah, a lot of people don't get that. It's an interesting idea, and it does take effort, and sometimes because we're all so different, it's like, "Oh, brother," You know, like, I know you have your family a couple times a year, everyone's all together, and you have a big family.
Oh yeah, that part. No, that's not, a negotiable,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, my family, like, I wanna be there for my family, my kids. I know look, sometimes it's tough, like, I'm on the road, I can't be there every day. That's something that's hard for me, I
mhm,
don't not I'm not home every day. But at the end of the day, the moments and the memories that I have I want my kids to say, "Damn, that was fun with dad today." Like, that means something to me because that's how my dad was as well for me. It was just like when I look back at my childhood, even though my parents were divorced, it was like the moments that I had with dad were really special. I was blessed to go to big games and
mhm,
watch, he would take me to all the big sporting events in Europe, whether it was rugby or tennis or soccer or whatever. It was just always fun to be able to travel with dad and I love those moments that we had as a family. So, I mean, look, we're leaving to Cameroon next week. I'm bringing the whole crew and this is their first time going to Africa, so for all my little kids, so I'm really excited about it.
so you have four kids,
Mhm,
and, a new baby who's just a little over a year.
mhm,
You have a lot going on. Your wife is a working woman, successful person. And, it's funny because 'cause it's been really fun to watch you go from single to I'll never forget it as long as I live. I was sitting in the sauna with Laird, and you and Lais were outside playing cornhole. The 2 of you playing cornhole, and it was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense." What have you learned Because for me, you this is the largest shift. I mean, not playing basketball is certainly a shift, but watching you grow into a father and a husband, what have you learned that you had no idea about being a partner? And let's call it husband since that's the role you're in.
Mhm.
What did you think? And then sort of what are you realizing is working that you only knew by going through?
When I was playing basketball, basketball was my priority.
Yeah,
Like, there was no women or anything that was gonna get between me and basketball. And that's the truth. Like, I had to find a partner who was okay with being second to basketball. So I'm happy. The biggest blessing that I had was meeting Lais at a time in my life where I could make her a priority. When and obviously you and your husband are the people that I look for guidance, and just the way that you guys handle situations is for me is like you guys are like the ultimate. I just because I know it's not always easy, but the patience you guys have for each other, like how you guys honor each other, like I respect that. Like I wasn't raising, like my parents were divorced, still best friends, but like more like I grew up like it was really rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like it, there was a lot of drinking, it was wild, it was free, it was like free spirit. I mean, you guys are too, but different. Like not like you guys are free spirits, but in a different way. And you got the way you guys show up to for each other is it's interesting because you guys are around with each other every day,
yeah,
and
it's a lot.
I think it is a lot. It's I'm not. This is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life
Yeah,
by far, but it's also the most beautiful thing I've ever done in my life. Like I love the fact that I have my partner, and we're in this together, and through the good and the bad, like I have somebody there that has my back, and I know that she feels the same way about me, and that's
yeah.
to me there's no better feeling than that.
No, and you know what's so funny? It made me just think that when you're like, "It's not always easy." I wrote a comment the other day where it doesn't have to be hard, but it isn't easy. So, because a lot of times people go, "Marriage, it's so hard, it's so hard." It's like, okay, well, enough or calm down with that. Like,
Mm.
cohabitation with anyone is a
But
challenge. So, but everyone so equates that only with marriage. It's like, no, kind of sharing space is tricky.
yeah,
But it's like but it isn't easy, but you can make it enjoyable, and it makes me think like Laird and I are not big arguers, but you were actually in my kitchen one time when I snapped it, and I never thought I saw a 7-footer that was like, "Oh my god, is there a place I can hide?"
yeah.
Because in that moment, Laird was acting like I was his secretary, and I was like, "Yeah, fucking enough of this." And I just saw you like your face,
I'll never forget it.
because it doesn't happen often, but
I was like, should I? I'm with you guys every day, and you guys have the grace to just like open your home to people, and I was there for the whole summer every day, and obviously you see everything. You guys
yeah,
open your home to us. So
yeah.
to me, honestly, it was one of those moments I'll never forget. I wish like it was like I didn't want to like I didn't know whether I should laugh or make light of it, or I
I
was
was
like, should I just leave right now? Maybe this is a little moment where I should just get out and give them their space.
It was just an instant, and I remember looking out the corner of my eye and seeing your big ass standing there, and I was like, "Well, he's gotta deal with it too, like, whatever." Um, that's life, that's the thing. It just is that. So, Joakim, in starting to wind this down, the hardest thing and the most important thing, I believe, and the most gratifying thing is being a parent. And, I see you as somebody who loves very easily. How has this because you are a stepfather and your father, but that just means father, but it's sort of like, okay, you get it meeting and having a new kid at, the 10 years old, and then you have your kid, the biologicals, and now it's all one family. How do you guide yourself as a father? Because I know sometimes for me, I feel upside down. So I go, oh, okay, that's right. Just try to listen and be loving. Just try to listen and be loving. So I have sort of certain mantras or things that guide me when I'm unsure. What what guides you?
What guides me, I mean, look, just I know that having a house full of kids and aunties and I have a village, and I don't take that for granted,
Yeah.
and I don't pretend to have all the answers because I don't. I have my own shit that we all have our own things, like whether it's the 1-year-old to the 18-year-old to me to my wife. We all, and you know what? It's what keeps life exciting. Like as soon as you think that you have it all figured out, I'm not gonna come here as a father and pretend like I have it all figured out because I don't. I have my stuff. I have my demons. We all have our demons and we have our angels too.
Mhm.
And I think that goes for every single person in my house and that goes for every single person in this world. So that's the way I see it. I count my blessings every day and my biggest blessing are my little ones. And just like you said, they're all my kids at the end of the day,
Mhm.
step kids or not, and that's how I come up, that's how I show up in life, like, and I know you do too, and I know Laird, so and I know you do that for your husband too. So, a lot of it is watching you and your husband and how you guys move in this world. It was I carry that when I show up for my kids.
Well, we're just a little older, Joakim. You've watched the whole thing. And it's funny 'cause, maybe we're not maybe some of it makes a little more sense to you now. Because I know when you were first here, you're like, "These 2, oh my god, lighten up."
It's not true. I always loved you guys.
No, I know. What I do appreciate, you used to show up late and with a posse, and then you'd show up early on time by yourself. So it was just always fun to watch that indication. I remember, Laird's like, "At 3 o'clock is 3 o'clock, and if you come late, I'm gonna be out in the ocean or something." I,
Well, I was also there all day.
It was great, it's great. I wonder, people get injured, right? Like, I always am trying to encourage people to build their own practice, do what you can do wherever you're at. You've had to deal with a lot of injuries being an athlete, that's very commonplace. Um, was there something you learned about being injured, that not only helped you during, the recovery process, but that also you maybe still stays with you today?
Yeah, I think that I'm very different to Laird in that way because like Laird's motto is like speed and take chances. Still, I think
Mhm.
there was a time in my life where, I will run through a wall. I'm not running through a wall like
Yeah.
that anymore. I've had, 9 surgeries, 9 operations, Achilles, knees, the whole full shoulder reconstruction. I'm not I'm not the same person I was when I was 24. And if I am, it's got to be for the right reasons. And if I'm going to run through that wall,
Yeah.
it's got to be for my kids. It's not going to be for an organization. It's not going to be for any of those things. It's I'm very clear of who I am. I know what I'm trying to do here. I know my purpose. It's clear, and it's not just for winning and losing ball games anymore. And you know what? And I'm at peace with it. Like it took me a while, but I can genuinely say I'm at peace with not being that anymore because a lot of my identity was that like, oh, Joakim, like you get him, like he'll run through a wall for you. Well, I'm not that anymore.
Of course, you can relate to this. Having injuries makes you also appreciate, like, "Oh, I got up off the couch so easily today and walked across the room." Like, you have those injuries where you're like, "Hey, can you bring me some water, please?" Like, I think once you felt that, you go, "Oh, wait a second. I'm not gonna take even some of these small things for granted because I know what it's like to feel it to be incapacitated."
The worst, the worst.
So, Joe Kim, listen, you've had good coaches and maybe coaches that you didn't connect with. I'm just
Mhm.
curious from your point of view because I think mentorship and coaching is a really powerful position. I've been impacted. My whole life has been redirected by a great coach. I think your college coach obviously impacted you, and then people in high school that impacted you.
Mhm.
What are the traits? Because I think a lot of times, let's say you're an adult and you would like to be helpful to a younger person or a mentor like you do,
Yeah.
with your foundation and with MBA Africa and all these other things that you're doing. What are the qualities that for you are what make you go, yeah, you know what, I'd follow that person into battle, or I believe them when they say that.
trust is the most important thing as a mentor or a coach that you have to have. Like,
Mhm.
and that trust is you have to prove that to people over time. It's not something you're gonna say. It's how you're gonna it's how you show up every day, and that's how you gain trust. That's how you gain your team's trust. That's how you're gonna gain these kids' trust. And I think that these kids right now, with all the access they have, the social media, they don't give that away easily. You know, so I think that you have to be true to who you are first, and be honest with these kids. And look, there's like these kids are dealing with a completely different set of realities. Like, you get dunked on in a game, it's not in the newspaper the next day for a day. It's like, yo, it's people see it all around the world, and it's in slow motion, and it's in HD, and it's like it's a whole different set of world. And then these kids also have NILs deals. So these kids are making money. So they don't even feel like they need to trust anyone. So the game is completely different than it was when I grew up. I was blessed to have great coaches growing up. Um, but I think the most important thing that you can have, obviously, is you can always educate yourself on how to become better as a coach, but having the trust of your players, and whether you're a coach or you're a mentor, having that trust is everything.
And you said at the beginning of the conversation, it's like the authenticity. And I always knew that that's why you didn't love interviews because you didn't it's like you're not here to sell anything, and sometimes that seems like when it's canned or boxed into a frame, it's like, "Oh, okay." That seems a little disingenuine, but I think to your point, that authenticity as a coach is imperative. NIL, do you I think about that like, man, I gave up my scholarship. I had to pay to play because I was working and making money. I'm fascinated. Do you think that would have been better for you or screwed you up if you had NIL? Can you imagine the jing you would have made, back-to-back championships, men's basketball? Like, do you think that? Because I worry, I understand. I went to Florida State. I was around a lot of athletes that
Hmm.
the only reason they were there is because they were on scholarship, but it was like, "Hey, do you wanna go to the movies?" And it's, like, tricky. So and they're making the organization millions of dollars.
Hmm.
But I started thinking, like, what if we could give them, like, they could get paid 25% now, 25% in 2 years. Somebody took the taxes out already, and then they get the other 50% after they're 24 or something, because I'm concerned sometimes about, are they taking taxes out? You get that much money, then you're hurt, then you never play. So you're the largest time your earning capacity, your greatest earning capacity was 19 or 20 years old. It's like, I really wonder.
I think the fact that you're wondering is already a great start, because we need leaders like you right now to come up with a better system. Because I think it's a great start, but it's the Wild West right now, and these kids are have access to a lot of money, and you know what? They deserve it. Like, you can say whatever you want.
I
This We're talking about NILs, we're talking about marketing, Gabby, and the truth is we're not even talking about the TV revenue, okay? And so let's okay, we're talking about these kids and all this. Yeah, we're not even asking the right questions. How much money is this TV revenue generating for
the
the
SEC
kids?
or
Don't get anything.
yeah. No, I get it.
Okay, so there's that part. But the truth is, okay, as an 18, 17-year-old kid, you're not used to being able to manage millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to figure that part out, and maybe it's these kids, putting it in a fund where they get it later in life, but they definitely deserve. There's at least we're all on the same page that these kids deserve it.
If the money's there, let's get it to them. Their universities are making money. NCAA, they're all doing it. But my concern, and I don't know if it's like a female brain, I'm like, can't we take the taxes out and give them some so maybe they can get relief for themselves, and if they want to get relief for some family members, and then give them a little more, and then give them the lion's share or all of it after a certain age. Because my only concern is, do they get desensitized also and distracted? Not to mention that you have to post. Think about this. Think about if you had to train and compete and then worry about posting.
Yeah, it's terrible. The system's it's messed up. G, like
But
I'm with you.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. I'm on the same page with you that
Yeah,
right now the kids are being pulled in way too many different
yeah,
directions. They also have to educate themselves on what it means to have
yeah.
money. It's like it's you can't just you have access. I mean, you imagine having any kid. I don't care where you what demographic you come from, but any kid you're giving kid a 17-year-old kid $1 million. That's scary. That's a scary thing. So let's put them in a position where they can win.
So, Joakim, maybe you can get with some guys from the NFL and the NHL and baseball and see if we can do some things to protect these. Put that on your plate. You have Nomad, you have Noah's Ark, you have it all. Let's go. What did athletics, how did that contribute to who you are today?
I think it's how I show up. You know, I'm very proud of my background in sports. It showed me discipline. It showed me, being able to fight through adversity. It showed me camaraderie. And these are all tools that like I show up in life with what I learned from sports.
Mm,
And it's also my identity. It's what people know me by. And you know what? I'm proud of how I showed up as an athlete. And it wasn't always pretty. There was unbelievable moments that I'll never forget. There were terrible moments that I'll never forget. But I'm proud of how I showed up as an athlete, and I have no regrets. I have absolutely no regrets, and I'm at peace with that. But it's a different time in my life, and now it's more about how I show up for the next generation, and just like we talked about, like I try to be very careful on how I talk about on the next generation, and because it is very different than the way that we grew up. And I think that a lot of people just look at life as if oh, this is how it was when I was playing.
mhm.
And I feel like you already lost them.
Yeah,
You're like, if you show up with, well, we were tougher, and well, we can't, I don't even recognize the game anymore. It's like, okay, well, now you're losing the the audience that you're trying to talk to,
yeah,
because it is different. It's very different. And the game is different. The game is refed completely different. The money's different. And be careful, because the way you talk right now, you're gonna sound like a hater.
yeah. I think what happens is you get to a certain age and you realize that that is the cycle. I heard Mark Cuban say his dad said, "We don't live in the world that we grew up in or we were born into." And I think that that's the cycle is us learning to adapt to the way that the world is. And if we have something positive to contribute to do that. You said something really important that I want to re-highlight, which was you went back into the NBA and said, "Hey, how can I be of value?" I think that that's a really important people thing for people to be reminded of is that sometimes we have to advocate for ourselves. And even if it's, "Hey, I can be supportive or can I help or how could I be useful?" But that's still a form of advocating for yourselves. And even though it's scary and people might be like, "Well, I don't really know," or maybe not right now, we don't know what's going to come out of it. So, for example, your Nomad show is a perfect example of you advocating for yourself and also saying, "Hey, can I be of service?" And I think that that's a really important thing.
Respect. Thank you, Gabby.
Okay, so in ending this, I want to share one quote, one thing that you've said to me. I don't know, maybe 7 years. I don't know how long ago it was. You were leaving our house. I know you know the moment, and you had gotten an injury, and you had to tell the French national team that you weren't going to compete in the Olympics. And I felt bad for you because I knew that they were going to be disappointed and. And so I said, "Hey, good luck and sorry." And you looked at me, and yes, it's ironic because you're 7 feet tall. But for me, metaphorically, this is for all of us to know. I said, "I'm sorry." And you said, in the words of Ben Wallace, "It's a small thing for a giant." And I thought to myself, "Oh shit, that's poignant for everything in life. If we can, in our perspective, stay giants." And I think you do this beautifully. Um, most things are small things, and it's something that listen, Joakim, you can say all the things you've learned from Laird and I, and watching you and being your friend, I've also learned, and one of them was it's a small thing for a giant. So thank you.
I appreciate you, G. You're the best.
I love you, and for all the people who want to find you, your Nomad show is on NBA Take Two, their YouTube channel. And if they want to learn more about your foundation, can you please direct them, Joakim?
NoahsArkFoundation.com. Go check it out.
Love you.
Love you, G. You're the best.